So, do you want to write like H.P. Lovecraft? Then all you need to do is stick to the simple structure. The structure you can find in one of his earliest works. Welcome to the Eldridge Collection. My name is Aaron Peterson, and I will be your curator. Dagon was first published in November 1919 in the amateur writing magazine The Vagrant. Dagon tells the story of a sailor who escapes from the Germans in World War I, and as he's on the open sea, he encounters a strange land that apparently appears out of nowhere. And as he's exploring it, he finds ancient ruins and a huge fish god monster that he refers to as Dagon. Interesting side note, Dagon is the name for a Sumerian fertility god and god of fish. This story might be one of H.P. Lovecraft's earliest works, but already you can see his structure and his style really being developed in this story. And that's actually why it's one of my favorites. The structure is actually quite simple. All you really have are 5 parts. Most of his stories use a framing device. This is part 1. Usually it's in the form of a diary, a letter, or a collection of letters. In this particular story, it's a suicide note. From there needs to be some sort of adventure or discovery. And I think that's one of the key elements of a story by Lovecraft that a lot of people miss out on, is that there needs to be some thrill or excitement before the horror. In this story, we have a little bit of both. We have adventure as this daring soldier escapes from the Germans to kind of fend for himself on the open sea. And then there's also a little bit of discovery as he comes across these ancient ruins. At first, he's not purely horrified. He's actually rather curious. As the sailor comes across the ruins, this is what he's thinking. Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist or archaeologist's delight, I examine my surroundings more closely. As you can see, he was very curious in addition to being pretty unsettled. And I think that line there that H.P. Lovecraft walks is rather important to both his structure and his success. You know, you have to be curious to know what's on the other side. The next part is that curiosity or adventure has to pay off with some sort of discovery that has huge implications. In Dagon, these implications are that there's an ancient race of sea men that are advanced and very, very old. And as that discovery starts to sink in with both the reader and the main character, the next part comes in, which is the climax of the story. And this is usually when some horror reveals itself as being more true than first anticipated by the characters, or by being more horrific than the characters assumed. And in this case, the seamen creature, or the Dagon monster itself, emerges from the abyss below the monolith and climbs the monolith. At this point, and in most stories by Lovecraft, the main character either becomes insane or dies. The 5th and final part of the story is the closing of the frame. In this case, this is the end of the suicide note. We see that in the story, the main character both goes mad and dies. It's not true with all of his stories, but it's true in most. This is why I like Dagon so much, is because it feels like the distilled, I don't know if I want to say purest, but most fundamental story of H.P. Lovecraft. It's clear, it's simple, and it also has echoes of his later work. You know, the ruins being lifted up violently above the sea is seen in Cthulhu, and the fish people are seen in Innsmouth. It's all very fascinating how much you can see of his later work in this early story of his. If you haven't read Dagon, I really recommend it. It's pretty short. It's like maybe 5 pages long, but it gives me shivers every time I read it. It's an awesome read. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and thank you for watching.